conviction on your record. Even hearing those words might send a little shiver down your spine. That's because you want to avoid a conviction if at all possible. But what if it's too late? If it's already on your record, how do you remove it? The answer to that question might be a motion to vacate. So let's break down a motion to vacate now and see if we can help you fix your record. Hi, I'm attorney Derek Martin with Driver Defense Team, and we help people fix their driver's license. One of the most common ways we do it is with a motion to vacate a traffic ticket. Now, before we get into the details of how we do that, let's first talk about how you may have wound up here in the first place. There are a number of ways that you can get a conviction on your record. One of the most common is you get the traffic ticket and you send it in with a payment. That is essentially pleading guilty and asking for a conviction. You're not contesting the ticket. A lot of people do that because it is the least expensive initially, but now you're finding out the effects that that can have on your record or your driver's license. Another common one is you were required to appear in court and you didn't. Think of this as like a default. You were supposed to be there, you didn't, so the court found you guilty by default. Another very common scenario is where you got court supervision, either on the internet or by mail, or maybe you appeared in court and you got court supervision, which is often a good thing on a traffic ticket, but then you failed to complete it. Oftentimes, you either just didn't do the traffic course that came along with it, or you never paid the fines and fees to the court. So at the end of that supervision term, the court looked at it, said that this person did not hold up their end of the bargain, so we're not giving them supervision. Instead, we're turning this into a conviction. And now you have a conviction on your record that is reported to the Illinois Secretary of State. The fourth and less common one is you went to court, you stood in front of a judge, and you pled guilty and got the conviction. That is often not able to be removed. And that's because you only have 30 days to file this if you stood in front of a judge and verbally agreed to doing this. But in the other scenarios where you mailed it in, or you went online and paid it, or you failed to hold up your end of the bargain, or failed to appear in court, well, in that scenario, you never really had your day in court. So you may still be entitled to that. There's some restrictions. In some counties, they'll only let you go back 2 years. But a lot of places, especially in Cook County, we've had a ton of success going back years and years, even decades, in removing tickets from the record. So it really depends on the courthouse and the circumstance in which you got the ticket and the circumstances in which you managed or mismanaged the ticket. The process for filing and handling this motion to vacate can be a little bit confusing. So first, we have to determine if you're eligible for this. And that's really just how the ticket was handled in the first place, like we just talked about. But if you are, then you can go to the courthouse in which you originally had court. And then you can file a motion to vacate. Costs $40, $50, somewhere in that range. The clerk's going to charge you for that. And essentially what you're requesting to do is you're requesting or motioning the court to reopen your ticket. And then you'll have a court date. Oftentimes you can do it the same day. Sometimes you have to come back depending on the court schedule. But then you go in front of a judge, and it's kind of a two-step process. First, you're requesting to vacate or reopen the ticket, vacate the conviction and reopen the ticket. If that's been granted, now you have an open pending ticket, and it has to be resolved, or really re-resolved the right way, because it doesn't do you any good to reopen the ticket and then resolve it in a way that results in a conviction again. That's not worth it. So you have to resolve this case in the right way now. Once you're done with all that, and assuming you've achieved that, then you have to update the Secretary of State so they can update your record. That's often not automatic. So there's a communication from the court and some documents you receive there that then have to get communicated to the Secretary of State in order to actually fix your license. See, way too many people go through the hoops in court, but then not actually update the Secretary of State. So this is something you can do on your own if it's a traffic ticket, but it is a rather confusing process. And I'd say most of the people contact us in order to do it because right from the get-go, we can have the conversation about what happened, are you eligible, what courthouse, how fast it's going to take. We know the court schedule. We know which judge is sitting there oftentimes. And so that is the huge benefit to doing something like this and cleaning up your record in the shortest amount of time possible. So we're happy to discuss this with you and see how we can help you out in order to file a motion to vacate the conviction off of your driving record.